Alright, today we are going to be using the algebra tiles in our big ideas. So you might have to open up another screen and go back and forth, pause the video, and that kind of stuff. So first thing you're going to want to do is log into your big ideas using your Active Directory. Once you're on there, you're going to click on the three horizontal bars. So let me show you what it's going to look like. So I'm logged into a student's account. They have the three horizontal bars right here. So you're going to click on those. Then you're going to look for where it says Math Tools right here in the center. By the way, there's also some cool games right here in the game library and skills trainers to help people with missing skills. So we click on Math Tools and then look for the one that has the algebra tiles. And you click on that. Okay. Alright, so let's go ahead and play around with the algebra tiles because we'll use those throughout the year. It's easier when we're in class, but you guys can do it. So these little ones right here down at the bottom left, those are the ones. Okay, so positive. Now if you want to switch it to a negative, you just click over here, the plus minus sign. So that's how you change them to positive and negatives. So if we put out a couple, see how we have them. You can move them around. Again, to change it to a negative, click like that. So these are the algebra tiles we're going to use. Later on in algebra, we'll use the x and the x squared tiles, but we just need the ones and the negative ones. And just to show you something, will be coming up in a minute. A positive and a negative cancel each other. See how they disappear? So just something for you to know. All right. So back to the notes. So the learning target is to find sum of integers. So we're going to be basically adding positives and negatives. And then you can see some of the criteria. So let's go ahead and talk about this. How can you use integer counters to model a sum? So basically, you use them to represent each number. And then, how do you get a sum that equals 0? If they're the opposites. So if you have the same number of positives and the same number of negatives, they'd be opposites, and that means you would get a 0. So what expression is being modeled below? So how many negatives do we have right there? So hopefully you counted 3. So that would be a negative 3 plus, and then we have 2 positives. And remember what we said about the 0 pairs. The positive and the negative will cancel each other and cancel each other. And what are you left with? A negative 1. So let's try that on with our model. So here we are with the 3 negatives and the 2 positives. Remember, when you put a positive on a negative, they disappear, and so you're left with a negative 1. So usually in class you would have this paper, but I think you can print it out on the website if you guys wanted to. But what we're going to do is we're going to go through and do some of these. You can do however many you want. But basically, the type of the sum, that means do they have the same sign or do they have the different signs? The sum is your answer you get. And then is your answer positive, negative, or 0? Okay, so if we look at the first one, negative 3, 2, we just did that. They had different signs. And our sum we came up with was negative 1. and it is a negative, so it'd be a negative. So we're going to do negative 4 plus negative 3. So, hold on. So here's my model of 4 negatives and then 3 more negatives. Now if you notice, if you take the 2 negatives and put them on top of each other, they don't disappear. Remember, that only works with 0 pairs, a positive and a negative. So if we have all negatives and they don't cancel each other out, we're going to end up with a, let's see if I can write, negative 7. So back to that other paper, they have the same sign. We got negative 7 and they're negative. So let's try the next one, 5 plus negative 3. So here's my model of positive 5 plus negative 3. So since they have different signs, I would end up putting them on top of each other, canceling them out, and what are we left with? We are left with positive 2. So they have different signs, positive 2, and it's positive. All right, what about 7 plus negative 7? Let me go ahead and show you that one. You can work it out. All right, so we got 7 positives and 7 negatives. So remember, since they're opposite, we're basically going to subtract or cancel them out. So what's going to happen? So we end up with 0. All right, so this one again on the paper has, so it has different signs. That means we got a 0 because they're opposite. So it's not positive or negative, it's just 0. So let's look at this without the counters. 2 plus 4. Do they have the same sign or different? They have the same. Now if they have the same sign, you're not going to be canceling any out. So that means we're going to add those together. So 4 plus 2 is 6, and it's positive. Now these ones have the same sign. Since they're both negatives, you're going to add them up and keep the negative. So it's going to be negative 8, and we got negatives. This one, different signs. So if they're different, you're actually going to find the difference, which means subtract. So 9 minus 5 is 4. And there are more positives, so it's going to be a positive 4. 15 plus negative 9, different signs. So we're going to find the difference or subtract. We get 6, and there's more positives, so it's a positive 6. Negative 10 plus 10, those are different signs. We're going to subtract, but they are opposites also, so we get 0. Now be careful, this one is not 0. Negative 6 plus negative 6, they have the same sign, so you're going to add. So we end up with a negative 12. That's negative. This one, they are different signs, so we're going to subtract. We get 0. Again, just keep 0. So, how can you tell whether the sum of two integers is positive, negative, or 0? The sum will have the same sign as the integer with the greater absolute value, unless they're opposites. So if they have, so basically look for the bigger number, the bigger absolute value. That's the sign you're going to get. So it'll tell you if it's positive, negative, or 0. So if we go back and look at all these positive ones, the positive number is bigger. So let's see. And this one, negative. They're both negative, so you keep that sign. All right. And then the last one. What are rules for adding two integers with the same sign? If they have the same sign, you're basically going to add them and keep the sign. So that's what I would do. You just add them up if they're the same sign, and you keep the sign. If they're different signs, you're really going to subtract and keep the sign of the greater absolute value. And then if they're opposites, it's 0. All right, so that's the end of this lesson. So go ahead and you'll try out your homework and hopefully do well. Make sure you use that check button. If you have any questions, make sure you have your parents text me or join the WebEx for help.